My name is Maxwell Abeles, and I was born in New Hampshire and moved to New York City when I was 10. Went to art school in Boston. Came back to New York and stayed there pretty much ever since. So let's get into it. So when I was in school, I was really interested in combining imagery with music, and I started doing that with video. So I'll just play some of my video from school. See what that's about. And I kind of got to jump through things because time is a bit limited.
Got it?
Yeah.
Let's go to full screen. The green button right there. I don't know why I did that. That was weird.
Okay, cool. So I was also doing like paintings inspired by religious art. I really liked the formal quality of it, and the so yeah, body horror was a big theme. Technology, electronic music, and these themes continue now, just in a bit of a different, with different media. So after school, like I got kind of sick of video, but I still wanted to combine technology with my art and with my music. So I started using more circuitry and using software that would let me do more things with lighting. And I kind of moved beyond video, and this is an installation that shows that kind of next step. This was at Harvest Works in Soho.
Oh, I've seen this work.
Why does it like... Alright. So then I wanted to do sculpture that was really moving to music, but then I realized that it would be such an ordeal to program it and to do the mechanics of it, that I thought, why not just do this light reactive sculpture and I can just wear it. So I thought, if I wear the sculpture, then it'll be moving. And it went pretty well, and that's kind of what I'm continuing doing. This is some video from a show I did in Japan in 2009. Okay. So then I decided, like, I was showing my work, I was doing the whole fine art thing, but I didn't want to keep using my real name. And I thought it was cool that musicians could have a stage name and have something else other than their real name. So I decided to use kind of my name, but I spelled it differently. And MAKS, and then I thought maybe it should stand for something. So I thought about my work and like the technological side of it and the musical side of it. So I thought musically advanced kinetic systems. So I kind of went with it. And yeah, then my work, I wanted to get more narrative and have it a bit more about religious experience maybe. This is just an idea of how serious this is going to get, guys. Google Slides is probably the most annoying application I've ever used.
Are you streaming what?
I'm not. I'm just like, yo, I don't want to keep seeing this bar in front of me. Like, what's with that browser bar? Okay. Okay, so this is like an example of like what I do now. A lot of the time I do stuff on the street, and all these sculptures plug into the computer in some way, shape, or form. This is the first instrument I made, and the 3 sticks are basically like knobs that control different parameters, and it's made of plaster. And this is my first show I did out on the street in Bushwick. I think it was 2014. Bushwick Studios. And the signs in the back, I got those in Chinatown, and they're originally for like restaurants, but I had a friend that did like animation, and you can upload GIF files. So these insignias and stuff I'm working with, I had those uploaded to it. And I was looking at a lot of work from Africa, especially Burkina Faso. I'm not sure if I'm saying it right, but they do a lot of stuff without human features. So a lot of their masks are just abstracted natural forms, and I found that really powerful. And so I was trying that myself, and this was kind of like a first attempt at that. This was pretty heavy. This was plaster, and I've since stopped using that material, but here's an example of another street performance with a bit more masks and kind of maybe a bit of a narrative to it. This was in Chinatown. want to talk a little bit about like how the technology works. So the software I use is called Max MSP, and it allows you to like not have to do much code. You can just graphically connect stuff, and you can do it with you can use music with it, and lighting and motors, and all that nerdy stuff. And this is what plugs into it. You have like a little microcontroller, and these knobs are what I use in that instrument you saw, and lights, and it's a transistor up there, and you know, you can find it all on Google. There's really no excuse. So in like 2015, I went on a trip to Antwerp, and I was really so impressed by the heraldry and the coats of arms, and seeing that in a city, and seeing that kind of visual language. I've never been so depressed as when I came back to JFK, and it was like the most unvisual like experience, and I wanted to try and bring some of that back to New York. So this was a pretty involved project, took about 2 years, but I made these light boxes using some crests of mine, and this is how that panned out. Yeah, we get it.
I'll do it again.
This was
what we'd see as a truly modern civilization meeting a truly ancient one, and it's a great shock for both sides. Perhaps the only occasion in history when we see what we'd see as a truly modern civilization meeting a truly ancient one, and it's a great shock.
So these, just another shot of them. And I started making patches and, wearing out the symbols more and getting my logo carved onto a machete, So the thing of it is that with the insignias and the face masks and the camo, there's a certain look to it that I like, but I don't want it to be confused with, right-wing neo-Nazis. So, no to these guys. And I really hope that, artists can look like that, and we can have new insignias and new symbols, and that you can see people that have this kind of presence, but it doesn't necessarily mean they're racist assholes, that they're, there's like a new kind of artist/militaristic thing that I think would be cool. These are some of the insignias. They're based off of electrical symbols. On the left, it's a capacitor. In the middle is a resistor. On the right is a diode, but I think of them more like a female icon, male icon, and like a death symbol, and hopefully people think of them like that, like later, and they forget that they were ever electronic symbols. This is like a large woodcut, a similar symbol. And I'm also really inspired by Native American culture and rattles and masks, so I was inspired by that and made a rattle. And I brought it so we can pass it around. And here's a mask. And this was the first mask I made that was actually lightweight. And it really changed the way I performed, and I think it really made things a lot better, and it kind of opened up my practice a bit. And here's the first performance with that setup, with that gear, I guess you could So after I made that, I saw this image in a book, and I thought I was looking at myself. It was pretty insane. And this quote was by Black Elk, who was a medicine man, shaman. And I think, it's really great for artists to be inspired by different cultures and different artwork. I get really kind of bothered by how, at least in art school, there's art history, which is so Eurocentric, and then there's like world art. But I think European stuff is just one part of the picture. And but aside from that, it's like they have these vision quests, these shamans and medicine men. And when I was like 18, I had like some real mental illness problems, and I hallucinated and saw a lot of really strange, frightening things. So when I read about their experiences, part of me felt like there was a real connection that was just beyond the aesthetics, and I felt like I was kind of part of that fraternity. So that's one reason why I have an affinity to that culture as well. And here's another performance I did in the subway with some newer masks. This was at Columbus Circle. So I think the public square is a really important place to be, to make work in. And I also was looking at a lot of like illuminated manuscripts. This is Simon Benning. He's a Dutch artist, I believe. And I really liked how clean the work was. And I wanted to make some kind of propaganda for my work as well. And so this was also done in school. I was always interested in the medieval stuff, so this is kind of like going back a bit. But I made this book, and there's just some of the pages to it. And so I wanted to make an illuminated manuscript, kind of like the Christians did, but just not have it very Christian. It comes with a CD, so each chapter has music for each section. Here's just some more images.
How big are these?
The paintings were maybe like 18 by 20, and then we just shrunk it down. And here's some of the music from it. So, again, like the whole art for art's sake thing, I don't like so much. With the paintings, again, I kind of think of it as like propaganda for like my, symbology. And so I kept thinking about how can I do sculpture and painting as a way that's not just art for art's sake. And these incense holders are a pretty cool way to make sculpture that was functional. So there's one from the Aztecs, and there's one from Iran, and here's one from me. It's this, not this. That's a human being. And don't feed pigeons, it's bad. This is them in action. This was downtown in the West Village. So again, keeping going with the sculpture as functional object, these are some harps from Africa, and I found a really nice book at the Strand with just a lot of these. And I was also looking at these pickup mic sensors, and I thought, why don't I do something with these pickup mics and make a kind of harp keyboard type thing that's a sculpted figure similar to these. So I made this, and this is pretty unwieldy. It's pretty large, it's pretty heavy. Each one of these like vertebrae has a sensor on it, so you can play it. And here's an example of that. Yeah. thing about using software is that, like, from my understanding, if it was all hardware based, then it would just do a particular thing. But because I'm using software with these sculptures and these instruments and whatnot, you can change what happens over time. So you saw in that video how in the beginning it was noise, and then after I hit the things a certain amount of times, it was a melody, and then I programmed it to stop working. So it's pretty fluid how you can have things change over time using software. I think it's good. So I want the next phase to be, you know, a group of people, and I think that's not that hard to pull off, and I think it'd be so great to like see stuff like this in New York City. Space age polytheism, baby. 2019. Thank you.
Thanks.